Hey, welcome back everybody, and welcome to the second half of August. So here it is, Sunday, August 17th, 9:15. Temps are in the mid 70s. So here I am on the way down to Holly Ridge for their monthly open air market. Their market starts at 10 and ends at 2. And I was looking at their Facebook page recently, and because they are a bee city, they have erected a pretty cool looking display right outside their community center, which is where the open air market is. As much as I prefer to be indoors, today's temps aren't terribly hot, and with the new display, I'm actually thinking about requesting to set up my tent outside. The other thought process is I will be the first vendor that folks see. And I brought a local honey for sale sign that I plan on putting out on the road. So, I don't know, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. They only do a monthly market, which is kind of cool. So people that know about it, I think they make it more of a point to come by since it's only once a month versus Onslow County, which is weekly. But the markets have been pretty good to me so far. This is the 5th or 6th market I've done between Onslow County, Holly Ridge last month, and then now I've done Topsail Island Brewery. They have one every week as well, and I've done theirs 2 or 3 times, which has been a pretty good experience. But I've got about a 30-minute drive. I'll get everything set up. I'll show you that, of course, and yeah, hopefully it's a good day. All right, it's 10 o'clock, and I obviously chose to get set up outside. So here I am in front of the building. Same building as last time, and this is something they recently put up. This is what I was mentioning earlier on the drive down, so that is pretty cool. Figured it was a good spot to set up outside, considering this just went up and it's right outside the front door. All right, well, that's that. So it's 2:15, heading home. Not a terrible market, and definitely far from great. Not terrible because any sales are good, right? Not great in comparison to the last time there and then a few other markets so far this season. It seemed unusually slow, and the temperature right now is 93, at least that's what the car is saying. The heat index is probably around the same. It didn't feel terrible, especially being set up outside. There was a pretty nice breeze, and I was right next to the donut truck, so I don't know. I thought that would result in maybe better sales, but there was a decent amount of people that came through, but it was nowhere close to being busy. But like I've said a few times now regarding all things market, you just never know until you show up and you try. It could be an extremely great day, and you never know if you didn't go. So not the best, not the worst, somewhere in between, but definitely heading home now, take care of a few things around the house, and get ready for the work week. All right, welcome back everybody. So here it is, Saturday, August 23rd, right at 2 o'clock. Temperature is 86 degrees, humidity is 62%, and the heat index is 93 degrees. So I've been under the weather for the last few days, and as you can see by the B-roll intro to this clip, I did not get around to mixing up any sugar water last week. So I successfully caught whatever my kids have had for the last week or so a few days ago, and I was supposed to go to the Onslow County Farmers Market today. Canceled that. I'm supposed to go to the Topsail Island Brewery Market tomorrow. Let them know I'm not going to be able to make it because I decided I need a few days to recover. So let me get suited up. We're just going to walk out to the bee yard, see what the bees are up to, because I find it very unusual that I don't see any bees on our bird bath. They're usually on there collecting water, so very curious to see what they are up to. But on a positive note, the path is completely dry, even though, yeah, let's see, even though there's a few dark clouds, if y'all can see that. But yeah, let's walk out there, see what the entrances are looking like. And then I took Monday off from work. It's the kiddos' first day of school, so I'm gonna be available for that. And then I'll also have time that day to possibly feed the bees if I don't do it tomorrow. And judging by how I feel and probably how I sound, I highly doubt that's gonna happen tomorrow. So I'll make it a point to make it a Monday thing. But let's go see what the bees are up to on a Saturday afternoon in late August. There's some activity, but let's walk around and look at the entrances real quick. I actually forgot that I tore down one of the hives last week. Left those boxes on top, the tarped boxes, so I'm glad I came out here, because that just reminded me that I do need to do something with those boxes, and that's something that I'm thinking about now that they've been robbed out and they're dry because they got rained on. That something is really adding them to some of the colonies out here. Yeah, nice activity, nothing unusual. But that's one of my goals, if I haven't mentioned it or talked about it recently. I would like to overwinter, still checking the swarm traps, no activity. I would like to overwinter all of my equipment in use, and so far currently that really just means 2 deep boxes and a medium that I have to find a home for. And although I usually overwinter my colonies as a deep and a medium with no queen excluder, this year I'll probably change that up just so I can get all that equipment in use, so I don't have to store anything with paramoth or anything like that. I did leave this queen excluder on, so that's kind of cool, and they had a decent amount of food, so there's some goldenrod starting to bloom. So if I don't change anything, I could have at least two mediums with goldenrods. That's should be a full bucket, full 5-gallon bucket, 60 pounds worth. But there's a few other colonies that produced a pretty nice summer crop. I'm gonna go back in hive tracks and look at my notes to see what hives that I took some mediums off for a summer crop. And I may just come back out sometime soon and add or re-add a queen excluder to those hives, and obviously don't feed them but feed the rest. And that was only about maybe four colonies, but I mean, if I could produce another 2 or 3 buckets of just goldenrod honey, that fetches a little more per pound. In fact, one of the local beekeepers, he sells the goldenrod that he harvests every year for about $25 a pound. So that's just something to keep in mind. I'm gonna get a hive tool, take this box apart real quick, or at least pull a frame or 2 out, maybe just a feeder to give myself some space, just in an effort to take a look, and hopefully in the next day or 2, hopefully wax moths don't move in, because that happened last year or the year before. Pulled some supers, harvested them, set them out for just a few days, and wax moths moved in very quickly, which was devastating. Okay, just wanted to show you a clip of late August, since I haven't gotten into the hives in a week, and it's probably gonna be a few more days before I do anything, but just a quick update. All right, stay tuned to see how the rest of the month goes. All right, hey, welcome back everybody. So here it is, Monday, August 25th, just before noon. Temperature is 89 degrees, humidity is 63%, and the heat index is 99 already, and it feels like it. But also, it feels pretty darn nice. I am finally out here to feed the bees. I'll just show you that setup real quick, or the first haul of sugar to get out to the yard. As you can see, I still need to drag out the hose reels, the extension cord. I'll fill up the mixing barrel with a few gallons, let it circulate since it's been a few days. But this is finally dried out, which is why I am getting out here now to feed them. So yeah, quite a few things to do real quick in preparation. No big deal, nothing unusual. But as I go through the hives, I also want to find a few strong colonies, and I know I have some, to add these boxes to before too much time goes by. There's already a slight sign of wax moths getting into them, so I just want to add them to some strong colonies, let the bees do their thing before, what was that, like 2 deeps and 2 mediums maybe of 100% drawn out frames before it gets destroyed and goes to waste. All right, let me get a few things set up. I'll show you everything once I get started, and come join me to feed the colonies. All right, I got about 12 gallons of water in the tank. I'm gonna turn it on in a second. I got the 4 bags prepped, so between 12 gallons and 100 pounds of sugar, that's gonna make right around 20 gallons of feed. I'm just gonna feed half of the hives at a time. Mainly because I wanna make 2 batches. I don't wanna make a full 40 gallons and then something goes wrong and I have all this sugar water tied up in the barrel. Because if you haven't seen the previous videos, I'm still trying to figure out the best length of time to run the sump pump. And I think it has a lot to do with time of year, the weather, the ambient temperature, the temperature of the water, which are all these things that I haven't really determined yet. So I'm pretty confident my max time is about an hour, which is very excessive. You don't really need to run the pump that long to thoroughly mix the sugar and water. So I'm going to add 100 pounds, 1 bag at a time, as the motor's running, so it slowly mixes. And then once I get that last bag in, which the time between the first and the last bag should be probably no more than 2 minutes, I'm gonna set a timer for 30 minutes and then come back out, check the consistency of it, and if everything looks good, feed the first 10 colonies, and then basically rinse and repeat. So here we go. All right, that's that. We got 4 bags in. Let me set a timer. Wish the phone would figure out how to unlock the phone when you're wearing a veil like this, since it can determine when you're wearing glasses. So let's see, 30 minutes, and it should be good to go. All right, stay tuned. All right, here we go. Last few seconds before the timer goes off, and it's been mixing for 30 minutes, so let's take a look. I also had an idea to grab my thermometer here, and I don't know if it's gonna read or not, but it says 87. Let me see if I shoot the pipe over here. That says 87 as well. It's hard to tell if it's like really picking up on the water, but yeah, no problem. All right, I'm just gonna drag the hose out to the hives. I went out there, prepped a few things, got the smoker lit in preparation of a few angry hives, and cracked the boxes so I can easily slide them over, expose the feeder, and one I'm gonna do a top feeder that you'll see here in a second. But yeah, it should take no time to fill up the 10. I'll fill up the barrel afterward with another 12 gallons. Let the sump pump sit in that cool water, just in an attempt to cool it down just a tad. Maybe let it sit for 10 or 15 minutes and then make the second batch. And that's it for, well, that'll be it for August. All right, so I'm gonna be moving as quick as possible because it's definitely that time of year.
You don't want to have hives open for too long, because as soon as I started cracking a few, yeah, they're definitely upset. I'll show you this real quick, set up the camera, and then I'm just gonna feed these 10 as fast as possible. So yeah, you can see and probably hear they're already upset. All right, they're all topped off. I'm just gonna close them back up, and then I'm gonna finish up by feeding the top hive feeder for, I think that's number 20. But hopefully this calms them down a little bit. They've gone quite a ways without any, or quite a while without any food. So we'll see. All right, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. The reason I said everything I did is because as soon as I cracked open some of those hives, they were on me for a little bit. But yeah, check this out. I think I measured just right. There's always going to be some residual sugar water in the bottom of the mixing barrel. And my solution for that is really to bring the hose to the barrel, kind of move the barrel back and forth to push water underneath the pump, and then I'll usually fill up as much as I can in some mason jars of various sizes. But yeah, like I said, I'm just going to fill it back up to 12.5 gallons of water, let the sump pump sit in the cool water for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then make the second batch, and all the hives will finally be fed. All right, it's been about 10 minutes, so the sump pump is reading 93 degrees, and I don't think it's getting a good temperature off of the water. All right, anyway, that was just a little bit of an experiment. I'm about to plug this in so we can do batch number 2. Same exact thing, let it run for 30 minutes, and then come out and feed the other half of the colonies. All right, well, it doesn't get much easier than that, so let's set another timer. It's also nice to be able to take a little break and let this stuff mix up. Come back in 30 minutes and repeat the cycle, and that's it for today. All right, the mixer has about 10 minutes left on the timer. I just went out or walked out to the yard to grab the smoker to refill it, because the second half of the yard I know has a few pretty hot hives, and I definitely didn't want to run out of smoke. But I want to show you all this real quick, because after feeding the first 10, it's like it just woke up the yard. Check this out. If you can't see or hear that, I'll walk around the front, of course, and show you what I'm talking about. This is pretty cool. Either this is normal and I just I don't notice it, or I don't remember from last year, or it is I need to get that inner cover back on, or it is unusual and the bees are pretty darn happy with the feed they just received. I figure while I have some time to get some of this extra equipment into play, just come out now and get it added and be done with it. Because some of it does show some wax moth damage. Not much, but enough to realize, like, if I let any more time go by, what starts as a small issue becomes a pretty big one, and I've lost a lot of nice wax like that before, and it stinks. So I have 2 deeps I need to put on some hives. It's just a matter of figuring out which hives. I have a few ideas down this side of the yard, but I'll do that here once I'm finishing up feeding the second batch. Curses you sump pump. So I was just over by the barrel making a few notes in the Hive Tracks app, and I noticed it was a little quiet, and sure enough, with 2 minutes left on the timer, it turned off. So I just disconnected power, set a 30-minute timer, plug it back in, and hopefully it works then, so I can finish the second half of the hives. I don't know what's going on with the weather. It's supposed to be sunny, no rain, and all of a sudden it became pretty overcast, which is interesting because that's almost when the yard activity picked up. But just to show you all that again real quick, it's pretty interesting, at least to me it is, because these hives went from like really no activity, and then fed them, and sure enough, I mean, it almost looks like springtime out here. And the interesting thing is, that's the comparable. I mean, sure, this side of the yard's active, kind of active, at least the hives down on the far end, but nothing like this side. Before I fed them, I mean, there was like no activity, and all of a sudden they picked up. So that's kind of cool. If there's an explanation for this other than feeding them, please let me know. But yeah, unfortunately, this is what I experienced when I use the sump pump. It is what it is. I mean, the mixing barrel is great, the sump pump's great. I just can't run it. See, there's the timer. I can't run it for too long before it overheats. So it is a small drawback in this setup that I'm still trying to figure out just a better way to go about it. So, all right, stay tuned. The next clip should be about 30 minutes from now, when hopefully I plug this thing back in and it turns on. I'll unplug it real quick, just like I've done in the past, prep the hives, plug it back in, and feed them as quick as possible before any further issues with the sump pump. Oh, there's the sun. Might turn out to be a nice day after all. All right, just an overall quick update. Sump pump pulled through. I let it cool down for maybe 20 minutes. I know I said 30, but I got a little impatient because there's a few things I need to do this afternoon. And then I timed myself to feed the second half of the yard. Geez. And knowing how aggressive and agitated some of the hives are, I decided to feed one by one. And I wanted to time myself out of curiosity, really. And that took about 15 minutes. A little slower, a lot slower, really. But yeah, check that out. So that's the same result the first half of the yard experienced upon feeding, which was almost like an immediate awakening of the hives. And I can only imagine it has to do with some of the sugar water possibly running out the front. but I was not looking forward to some of these, and they're starting to hit my hand and attack the camera again. I don't remember which hives they are, but man, they are just a little extra this time of year. So hopefully feeding them calms them down. All I have to do now is really just clean up the mixing barrel later. There's a little sugar water at the very bottom, of course. I'm gonna dilute it just a tad in an effort to really use as much as possible. And like years in the past, I'll get some mason jars, put the diluted sugar water in it, and invert them on a queen excluder somewhere in the yard, and just let the bees kind of open feed that way. And in fact, what comes to mind, because I haven't cleaned up yet, I might use the garden cart. 1 or 2 queen excluders can easily fit across the top. Put a few mason jars. I can move it around, of course, and maybe put it in a nice shaded area. But yeah, hey, that's it for me. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of the month. There shouldn't really be much to do at this point, but you never know. All right, hey, welcome back everybody. So here it is, Friday, August 29th, just about 4:15. Temperature is 88 degrees, humidity is 45%, and the heat index is 89. So it feels absolutely fantastic. I don't really have anything to do with the bees today. Tomorrow's going to be a complete wash with anything with the bees, because I'll be down at Holly Ridge for their festival. I'll show a few clips of that. But this past week, we've had an unusual cold front come through. And in fact, yesterday morning at 6:30 was the lowest temperature for the past week, and that was 56 degrees. So let me just put my veil on, get my gloves on. Let's walk out to the yard, just take a look at the entrances, see what they're doing. And the reason I wanted to do this is because I was sitting out back here and I noticed there is a decent amount of activity on the bird bath, which has not been the case for the last maybe week or so. I'll show you a quick clip of that, but that kind of got me thinking that maybe there's a decent amount of activity out in the yard. So why not go look? All right, let's go check it out and see what they're up to. Oh wow, I'll show you a clip here in a second as I get closer, but it is busy. Holy smokes. Hopefully y'all can hear that. There's a lot of activity going on right here. Let's walk around and look at the entrances, of course, but I'm really hoping not to find any surprises. Nothing looks too concerning, but that is a lot of activity. And I will say this much, one of the neighboring beekeepers asked how a few of our supers are looking that are all in the general area, because he got into his hives recently and he said his supers were filling up, and he's suspecting with goldenrod primarily. I told him I wasn't too concerned with that because I had just fed mine and I was happy to get some extra boxes on some colonies down here, the last 2, but more so I was happy to have fed mine by now, which, as y'all may have noticed, that is the first since harvesting honey in late June. But yeah, that looks and sounds practically like spring, and you bet I'm over here looking at the swarm traps like I'm gonna find something. These two have, I don't know, underperformed this year, that's for sure. But yeah, this is amazing. They're on something, that's for sure. They are busy, and that's flight activity. I was gonna say those are some busy bees. I'll give you a sky view. I've done this before, and usually it doesn't really come up as well as it looks in person, but this is crazy. I don't know. I was saying this before, or as I was finishing up this past weekend when I was feeding them, it was amazing to see the colonies come to life as I fed them. So from the previous clips in this video, I fed the first 10, the first half of the yard, because I made 2 batches of sugar water. And by the time I was feeding or mixing up and getting ready to feed the second half, the second 10, the first half of the yard, I mean, it was like they came to life. So I intentionally did not feed them as much this year because I really wanted to give them time to use any natural resources. And then looking back at last year, I pulled honey around the same time, which was late May. But last year I started feeding right away, and I was really impressed at how much feed and food they stored in the month of June. But then what I experienced this year makes me believe that I fed a little too early last year, and there was enough natural resources in June. So last year, between feeding and the natural resources that were available is why I believe they packed away so much food so quickly in June of last year, which isn't a bad thing, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that because I think I left a lot of honey on the table or in the hives last year that I could have harvested, which is exactly why I adjusted my practices for this year. But this is amazing. Let's take one more look, and that'll be it for today.
All right, hey, welcome back everybody. So here it is, Saturday, August 30th, right at 11:30. The weather feels great. It's currently 84 degrees and 59% humidity, and I am on my way down to Holly Ridge for their Liberty Festival and fireworks. So I have an hour to get down there. It's about a 20-minute drive. Vendor setup ends, or should end, at 12:30, and then today's events start at 1 and end at 9 with some fireworks. Should be a pretty good turnout. I think there's about 40 or 50 vendors all along one street, one road, and I am towards the end next to the dunk tank, the pet adoption, and a kid zone, and relatively close to some food trucks, which hopefully that helps bring some people over to purchase some honey. With that said, I also think I'm the only vendor selling honey, so that's pretty cool too. I got some new market material. I'll share a few clips of that once I'm all set up, but yeah, I'm about to get out of here. Should get down there about 12:30. The nice thing with this is you can back up to your spot to unload and set up, and then there's some designated parking for vendors. But yeah, let's get going, and hopefully it's a good day to sell some honey. Well, I just pulled off the highway, and I'd say I am in the right spot. Hopefully this isn't too long of a holdup, but we'll see. I have 45 minutes to get set up, and it usually takes me about 15. So I feel like I have plenty of time to get through this little bit of traffic, find my spot, get set up, and then of course I'll show y'all a few clips of the setup today, and then maybe walk up and down the line to show the rest of the vendors. And again, hopefully it's a good day. Should be pretty fun. But 8 hours, an 8-hour event. This is like a marathon because most are 4 to 5 hours. So hopefully that factors into a nice day of sales, but we'll see. I'll try to remember to share some sort of update as I'm finishing up, but that will be around 9:30 tonight, so I may or may not forget.
All right, I am right next to that white tent, so you could almost drive up to your spot is what the flyer should have said. But nonetheless, here I am, so let's get started. All right, it's 12:45. Quick look. That's booths 1 through 5. I'm right next to the barbecue tent, so that's pretty cool. Quick look at mine with the sign. or the flag actually. And then I think there's about 35 or 40 vendors down the road. Got a few food trucks, music, which is nice. And yeah, pretty cool kid area too, with quite a few bouncy houses. So it should be a good day. All right, hey, good morning, everybody. So here it is the following day. It's Sunday morning, probably about 8:30 or so. I just wanted to give an update on yesterday at Holly Ridge's Liberty Festival, mainly because last night I didn't get out of there until about 9:30 to 10 o'clock, so I figured providing an update in the dark car while driving probably wasn't the best idea. But overall, it turned out to be a really good time. Pretty cool fireworks display at the end, and I will most likely try to be a part of any future events and festivals that Holly Ridge has. Sales were pretty steady. There were a few low periods, and there was a few very busy periods. And when I say periods, I mean hours. I was trying to pay attention to how sales were for each hour. And the first few hours, so 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, pretty steady, and then it dropped off. And then sure enough, 5 o'clock, I think, as more people were coming to find seats for the fireworks, 5 o'clock was the busiest hour. And then it dropped off as people, were enjoying the festival and picked up a little bit. But overall, for 8 hours, which is by far the longest festival I've done, it was a pretty good time. So really appreciate Holly Ridge putting something like that on and having the thought to offset it from 4th of July, just because there's so many other cities around here that do very large fireworks displays. So talking to some of the ladies at Parks and Recs, I guess that was one of the ideas, was because there's so much other competition around here, they decided to do their fireworks for the Labor Day weekend. All right, stay tuned. I may or may not do a few things with the bees. The siphon that I purchased a few days ago finally came in the mail. The intent to use that is for draining the mixing barrel, because there's always like an inch or two, which is a few gallons since it's a 55-gallon drum. There's always an inch or two of water in there, which really gets nasty. So I just bought a very cheap siphon. I'll show you that here later today. I think it was like $7 or $8 on Amazon. The tube seems long enough to get to the bottom of the barrel, and then the other tube of the siphon that'll serve as the drain doesn't really have to be long at all, because I'm not worried about making a mess as long as it can reach outside the barrel. But I think that's probably how I'm going to finish up the video. That's really the last thing I have to do for August, so stay tuned for that. That'll be later today once it warms up and the sun comes out, because it's not overcast, it's just kind of cloudy. But the temperature is pretty nice. It's in the high 60s, maybe low 70s by now. But yeah, stay tuned for that. I'll just show you a quick clip of using the siphon for the first time. Hopefully it works as advertised, because I would like to get that barrel as dry as possible, really just in an effort to minimize the nastiness for the next time that I have to clean it. But as y'all saw, it can be absolutely disgusting, and just purging it with some water, fresh water, and then running some bleach through it cleans it up just fine. Fine enough to mix some sugar water and feed the bees. All right, that's all for now. Stay tuned for that. And again, that will most likely be how I finish up August's video. All right, it's about 3:30 in the afternoon. Temps are in the low 80s, humidity's in the mid 50s. And as mentioned earlier, as promised, let's see if this $8 siphon from Amazon is worth a damn at emptying out the mixing barrel. Again, I'll show you here in a second, but there's just a little residual water, really not much, maybe a few gallons in this little hand pump thing. It should work fine. And then I have this thing rigged up the same as I do right here. I just put a carabiner and tape it a bunch to weigh down the end of the hose, otherwise it'll kind of just float around. I do the same thing when I'm cleaning the house. I use just bleach water and the soap tube to the pressure washer. I'll weigh it down with the same carabiner, I think. But yeah, let's get this thing set up, opened up, see if this works, and hopefully it keeps it a little cleaner. I still suspect it'll get nasty just because it's covered, it's humid. Any moisture will eventually mold or help the inside mold a little bit, but at least it won't be as nasty as y'all saw earlier. So give me a few minutes and I'll share what I share. All right, again, it's really, I don't know if you can tell, I mean, it's really not that much water, maybe 2 gallons, 3 gallons at most, but it's been on my mind since it was completely disgusting after being left alone for 6 months. So let's see if this thing works or not. All right, well, first thing, the length is good, and I'm just gonna keep pumping this thing until I get some suction. I think I'm gonna have to put the camera down and lean the barrel towards me because it is just shallow enough, so I will try to share as much as possible. All right, I'm smarter than I look sometimes. Let's try this again. So I just put that stone on the back as y'all saw, and yeah, sure enough, okay, here we go. And yeah, that's all I needed to do. It's not a lot of water. I don't need anything fancy, but that is actually getting the job done. One pump at a time. All right, I'll show you the final result here in a few minutes. And my goal is to get as much water as possible out of it, so seems to be working just fine. All right, all done, overall satisfied. Here, check it out. This is the least amount of water I have ever seen in this thing since I started using it. All right, I'm about to get this thing put back together, covered up, and I'm out of here. I actually went and got my thermocell. I can't tell you the last time I've used this thing, but that's how bad the mosquitoes are out here. So thanks for watching, everybody. Cole's Farm here in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Really appreciate all the views. If you hit subscribe, even better. And of course, if you like the videos, just hit that like button. If you're looking for any local and raw, delicious honey, you're in luck because we have some. We actually have a decent amount left, but it doesn't last forever. We typically sell out around Thanksgiving to early Christmas, so don't wait too long to get some if you want some of the best honey in Onslow County. I'll say it. Navigate over to the banner in YouTube. That's our link tree. We have an online shop there as well. You can do a porch pickup, or I can ship it to you, whatever's more convenient. But yeah, hey, that's it for August. That is weird to say, but yeah, it's already September, everybody. So time to shift gears a little further in winter prep. So join me next month as I treat the hives for sure. I'm gonna treat them early September and heavy, and then I'm gonna feed them a few more times, all in winter prep. All right, thanks for watching. See y'all next time.